This is always good while you have your chat up so you can see that your sound wasn't on. All right, so thank you for everyone for attending today's webinar. I'm really excited to talk a lot about Voir, AI, how we can modernize the jury selection process and really revolutionize something that's kind of been an old school thing for a while and kind of bring it into the futuristic era, so to speak. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is James Grant. I'm one of the founding partners of Georgia Trial Attorneys, and we're car accident attorneys that have a little bit different take. Our role and our job, as we see it, is to help other personal injury lawyers make more money faster and with less stress by serving as their outsourced litigation department. We have built a law firm that solely serves other law firms to help them focus on what they're really good at, which most personal injury lawyers are really good at marketing and sales. They've got a great system for their pre-lit departments. And when it comes to those pre-lit cases that are run entirely different than litigation, and pre-lit cases have phenomenal margins, we can come in, be their back-end solution for those few cases that do need litigation, that do need trials, so they can focus on what they're good at. We can help them. We can all grow together. And it's kind of one of those niche things as well. There's a lot of lawyers that do litigate, but we only want the small stuff. We only handle cases from about $5,000 in damages up to $250,000. We don't handle multi-million-dollar cases. We don't handle those big ones. They're not in our model, and so we have a very niche market that we go after. So I appreciate those of you that are tuning in, and we're going to get to some really cool stuff of leveraging AI, because that's how we leverage our business. That's how we help our partners, our clients, and everyone by using AI and some of our own and proprietary technology to really streamline the litigation process. And as we're going to talk about today, the voir or jury selection process. So whether you're a true solo or a national brand, we're definitely here to serve you, and we're looking forward to working with you. And let's get started. Go straight into our slides. All right. So a very brief thing on housekeeping. I'm really hoping that we're going to stick around 25 minutes today. We're going to have 5 or 10 minutes of discussion, kind of go over some of the things that we're going to be discussing during the demonstration itself, and then we're going to probably have just a 15-minute Q&A or a 15-minute demo with the Q&A session. One thing that I've done in the past couple webinars is I've saved the Q&A for the very end of the webinar. We're going to try something a little different this time. We're going to have the Q&A as a part of the webinar. So don't hold your questions. Don't wait until the end. If you have a question about anything during this webinar, just throw it straight in the chat. I've got my chat right up here. And that way I'll be able to see it. We'll be able to discuss what's going on in the moment, as opposed to having to kind of try to backtrack and be like, what were we talking about? What was the theme? What was going on? So we can just handle questions as they come. So don't wait. Don't hesitate. If you've got a question, just throw it straight in the chat, and we'll address it from there. One thing as well, we're definitely going to learn stuff, and I hope you're going to learn something about AI and how it can up-level and modernize the jury selection process as you have done it in the past. Today's session is only 30 minutes, and it's going to be a lot of stuff really, really fast. So one thing I want to encourage everyone that's new is go check out my prior webinars. You're going to see stuff with my ChatGPT and how I interact with it that may be different than what you've seen in the past. And having just a little bit of a more thorough understanding of how to interact with AI, also how you can really change your interactions when it comes to your custom instructions. It's just really going to help you understand what you're seeing and why things are popping up in a certain way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to throw in the chat the link to the URL where you can go in. And then I think I've got Hannah on with me as well, and she's going to post it in the LinkedIn Live, post that same link. So that way, if you have questions, if you want to go look at those other webinars and that other content, go check that stuff out. It'll help you and just kind of give you a more complete understanding of where we are. Now, the big question is, why would you want to use AI in your jury selection? Why would you want to, mess with it if you have a tried and true method? Well, I think the answer is really simple. Is technology is a tool, and new stuff sometimes seems scary, but it's only going to help us modernize. You look at just decades and how things have changed in the legal industry, whether it be email or case management, any number of things. It's revolutionized the way we've practiced law now. And AI is just another one of those tools that is currently revolutionizing the way we practice law, especially in the personal injury field. So the quicker we understand and adapt and implement this stuff, the better it is for us in the long run. I've talked a lot about how we use it in just the day-to-day processes of responding to discovery, drafting documents, just modernizing your business. But when it comes to the orator skill of jury selection, I think it's something that can really help us. Also, you've got speed. Speed and efficiency is so huge. The faster you can do something and know that you have within a certain standard deviation quality, that really helps you. So again, the more you can use AI and technology to speed things up, the better. And then also your ability to customize and have AI think from another perspective or a different perspective to provide additional insight. That's really where this stuff is huge and can give you just more information to go on, as opposed to just looking at it and being like, well, this is the way I've always done it, so this is the way that it's only going to be. Now, when it comes to actually what we're going to be doing today, these are kind of the there's maybe 4 areas that we're really going to focus on quickly and briefly. First things first, though, when it comes to artificial intelligence, I want everyone to understand AI is not the end all be all. AI is not the one source of truth. There's not some singular prompt that you're going to be able to use that all of a sudden just changes the world and everything about your case is now perfect because you had this one special perfect prompt. There's no single prompt that's going to solve. There's nothing that's an ultimate solution. AI is a tool, and you have to skillfully use that tool to get skillful results. So that's some of the things that we'll be going over with today. But just understand that this is not some end game solution that's just going to revolutionize everything about the jury selection process. But little things here and there that will make you faster, better, and provide additional insights and just help you be quicker with it. I think that's really where you can just small changes, but those small changes add up to very, very big changes. So when we've got things here about assisting with jury profiling. One of the biggest things you have is there's a lot of perceptions revolving every county. And as far as where we file, especially in Georgia, we've got a ton of counties and every county is a little bit different. Sometimes we think that, this is the conservative county and this is the liberal county. Things have changed very rapidly over the last several years. So it's very important to stay up to date on what you think actually matches with what the demographics, the political leanings, the data that's out there shows about the jury pool that you'll be dealing with. So that's one thing that's very important. Also, creating profiles of the parties themselves so that you can use AI to determine different perspectives to take as far as, well, I thought this thing was important, but I never thought about this. Again, instead of using just 1 or 2 brains, you're using all the computing power of AI to help give you those other perspectives and other things to think about to then refine your process even further. And helping you predict, what are the characteristics that you want when you're looking at the facts, when you're looking at the doctors, the injuries, the parties, all these things, having AI suggest other alternatives or considerations that you may not have even put in the forefront of your mind. Again, a more complete understanding of being able to pick and choose is better than just saying, well, this was my plan all along, so I'm only going to stick with this. I'm not going to deviate. And then using that information to then refine templates. A lot of us operate on templates. We do jury selection, we do direct examination to an extent within the same framework. It's not the same questions every single time, but we follow the same framework. Well, updating those templates with this information is only going to help you. And then using what you've gained to further specify your jury selection for this case with this client, with this injuries in this county, just narrowing it so that way you're gearing it towards your panel and pool to find the most sympathetic jury for your client, because that's really what it's about. This is something where we're not necessarily looking for a fair and impartial jury. Honestly, I want a one-sided jury. I want the jury that sympathizes with my client and my client only, because again, I represent the plaintiff. That's all I care about. I care about my client. I don't want a sympathetic jury for the defendant or the defense or the insurance company or any of that. So the more you can use these tools to give yourself and your client a one-sided jury, I think that's something that really helps. And again, we want to couch it as a fair and impartial jury, but really we're looking for people that are sympathetic with our client. And with that, that's kind of the quick 5-10 minute version of the intro before we really get into the meat of the discussion and the demonstration. But one thing I want to do before we get straight into this interactive and demonstration portion of the webinar is I want to get some feedback from you all that are out there. First, let's look and say and talk about what we think the top characteristics are for a jury that would be sympathetic to a plaintiff. Put in the chat, write down, send me a message here. Let me know what you think are the top 3 or 4 characteristics in a juror that would be sympathetic to a plaintiff. So that way we can start to compile what we think, and then later we can compare that to what we're seeing with using ChatGPT and AI as far as how that may change or how it may be similar, and kind of give some positive feedback and reinforcement. So just take a second here, open up the chat, and just write down 1 or 2 characteristics that you would find in a sympathetic juror for the plaintiff. We're not talking about the defendant. We're talking about just the plaintiff. So, anyone that's out there, write down what you got. What's a sympathetic juror? What are some of their top characteristics? And if we don't have a lot of feedback, that's good as well. I get it. Some people don't like. It's okay. I've got a list here. We'll compare that as well. Oh, yeah. One that just came in, bad experiences with insurance companies. That is a huge one. You definitely want to find out about that, because while we can't say the word insurance, if we can couch our language and get everyone on board to understand that this is a case about insurance, then that's definitely going to be someone I want in my corner arguing for my client back in the jury room, because again, they're understanding that this is all about insurance. What are 1 or 2 more that are out there? I know we've got a couple that can give us some more. And what I'll do here is I'll transition over to our ChatGPT screen. So keep those coming as we're moving over here. All right, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to throw in. So as we start this demo, I'm going to be using some prompts that I've written down, and I've put them in the slideshow. It's not the slideshow that you're going to be seeing right now, but if you want to download the slideshow with all of the prompts so that way you can walk through yourself and kind of have the same interaction, you can download all of the slides on this URL. I'm just putting it here in the chat. I think Hannah's going to be able to throw it out there as well for us. But if you have, any desire to put out there or to download what my prompts are that I'll be using today, that's all there for you. So just check out that URL. All right. So some of this is going to be kind of, fast paced, because these are prompts that I have already written. I don't want to read the prompts to you word for word. That's the purpose of the slides, that you can download those. But our first prompt is, first we need to, because again, look really briefly here on the left side, we've got our chat window where we house our chats. You need to keep your chats separately. You can see some of the categories that I have that I've been using lately, but you don't want to mix, jury selection, discovery, drafting, business, marketing, sales. Like there's too many things that are going on. So always start a new chat. And then the first thing I want to tell it is, I'm coming up with a fictitious case that's filed in Henry County. Well, I need to tell it, let's focus on it, a jury pool that is in Henry County. And then the demographics and things that I want to focus on that I found were important. One thing when you interact with AI is you can tell AI that and I'll go ahead and run this while it processes, but I'm telling it to review census.gov to create this profile. Sometimes you'll have an interaction with AI where it'll say, well, I can't access the internet. Okay, that's fine. That's something that's new with the latest update to GPT. But what you can do is if you have a question like that and it's not accessing the internet, just go pull the URL, copy paste the information that you want, put it into the chat so that way it can feed it and process that information. What you're seeing here is based upon my custom instructions that I've done previously. So again, if you want to know how to get custom instructions like that to populate, go check out the other webinar and check out the link that's already out in the chat. So you can see here, it's pulled the data. It's telling us, what the population is, what the median age is, some of the information that's, I think really beneficial because you need to be checking this every time you try a case. Just because you think that this is the way the county was 10 years ago, it's not the way the county is today, most likely. So now that you know what county you're in and the AI knows what county you're in, well, you've got some demographic information, but one thing that I think is very important as well is you need to review the political leanings of that county. And again, those change very fast. I am asking it here to reference Ballotpedia for the county. Again, it's going to go through Bing. It's going to check that website. It's going to pull some information. It may work. It may not. It may say that, that we don't have the ability to look at that information. Again, the fix, go copy paste the information, put it into the chat. Here, though, we have some of that information. So again, now we're setting the stage. Here, this is kind of the county, what it looks like from an age, from a demographic standpoint, from a political perspective. Now we need to tell the AI who our client is. What I've gone and done is I've just created a standard client. Now, this is very, very basic. But the reason this is very basic is because we've only got 30 minutes for this webinar. You can put so much more information about who your client is and what all about them. But what we've got here is just a little bit so that way, because again, computing power, these prompts can sometimes take a lot of time for it to process. But well, I'll go ahead and run it and then we'll go over it. So, we've got a plaintiff that's 47-year-old female, parking lot attendant, single, African American, 4 children, associate's degree, where they live, all this stuff. I just asked GPT to come up with this person, and that's what they did. This is the bare minimum, I think, of where you start as far as describing your client. There's so much more because the more information you give, the more the AI can dive into and provide you additional insights. But you can already see that it's starting to pull information to develop voir dire questions that can help identify jurors that are going to sympathize with your client based upon just this little bit of information. Now, a lot of the stuff we're going to already know, but it's still good to have this feedback of saying, okay, yep, we're on the right track. These are things that I would focus on anyway. Now, when it comes to the actual process of voir dire, I'm making some assumptions. The vast majority of the trials that I've done, especially recently, have a close-ended question section followed by an open-ended question section. So you're going to ask your yes/no questions first and just have everybody, raise their paddles and write down the numbers of, okay, juror 1 responded yes, juror 2, juror 4, juror 8, and just mark down that way. And then you're going to come back and you're going to have your open-ended questions where you have a little bit more, discussion and follow-up. I always try to follow up in the moment because I think that's such a better interaction. But most judges, at least in my area, are very, very strict and are going to say, nope, you're going to have to do your specific follow-ups after you finish all of your general close-ended or yes/no questions. So that's kind of the format that I'm following here, because the next prompt is, I want to ask, all right, based upon this information, give me 2 close-ended questions for each of the above and 2 open-ended questions. But then one of the important parts is I wanted to tell me, why did you choose that particular question and what's an ideal answer? Again, going back to an earlier webinar, the more you ask the AI to provide, the better you can interact with it because you understand, oh, it was thinking about this. This is what its assumptions were. Again, when I ask it to put assumptions in place. So that way it gives you the opportunity to refine and say, well, I did like this, I didn't like this. So that way you can, again, interact with AI and have more of a conversation as opposed to, this one source of truth type prompt thing. Now, I use 2 questions for speed. you don't want to just use 2 questions. Maybe ask the AI for each one, give me 20 different questions and cherry pick the several that you want. Because again, the more information that you can have to filter through, the way better. I can't say whether 2 is enough. It's probably not at all. But you ask for 10, 20 on each one, then you really say, well, I never thought of asking this question, about socioeconomic status this way. I'm going to incorporate that particular question, whether it be for your closed-ended or your open-ended questions. And then, as far as the follow-up, we're going to go through a whole lot that's here, because I think there was what? Yeah, there were 8 different questions that AI suggested to find someone that's sympathetic to our created plaintiff. Well, we've got our closed-ended and our open-ended questions here. One of those questions may or may not be this one that I picked for the prompt, but it's always good to have additional follow-up questions built in for certain questions that you're going to want to dive in, especially if you get a response. So the question I'm going to ask is, say, well, now that you provided all this information, ChatGPT, I want you to, not provided, but provide 2 probing questions for a prospective juror who responds, yes or no to a closed-ended question. Well, here's the closed-ended question. Do you believe that someone with a history of legal claims can still be credible? I think that's really important. That's something that you would definitely want to dive in on your open-ended discussion section with any potential juror. So again, let's see what the AI comes up with. The AI is going to say, well, how do we really probe? How do we ask this without coming out and effectively saying, because a lot of times you can't come out and say exactly what you want, because again, jurors are smart people. You have to ask them questions in a way that they let their guard down. And this is through the whole jury selection process. There's a lot of introduction that goes in there. There's a lot of building a relationship with 45 people that you have to do very, very quickly to get them comfortable with answering those questions and being truly upfront and honest. That's not necessarily something AI can help you with. It can help you strategize maybe, but you've got to go through all this. And again, you're saying here that there's more questions. And again, don't just say 2, say, give me 10 probing questions. Do that for all of your closed-ended questions, so that way you can have more probing follow-ups when they say yes or no. It's good to kind of build this almost like a call center, phone script. So that way you're saying, all right, well, yes, then no, here are my different routes. Doesn't matter what the response is, I'm still going to have a probing question to try to get and find the information that I want and need. Doesn't matter whether you say yes or no, because again, building that phone tree effectively has a stronger likelihood of you having more interaction with your jurors to then get more information, to then have a good set of data to base your decision on whether you can strike them or whether you can strike them for a cause, or whether you just have to use one of your strikes to get rid of them as well. And then, another question, another prompt that I had come up with based on this is, what are a few open-ended questions, to discreetly disqualify jurors who may be prejudiced against someone? And this is, again, where you fill in whatever question you have, but let's stick with the thing that we were talking about a history of claims. Well, what are a couple open-ended questions that can try to really probe in there and say, is this person going to be super prejudiced against someone that has a history of claims? Again, building your profile of your plaintiff, let's be specific. Let's say they had 7 prior claims in the last 4 years. Again, putting that information in here, letting GPT filter it all, and then say, all right, well, here we go. These are some more, thought-provoking and engaging questions that we can use. Now, what we're going to need to do is, this is a simple version of how we would do this for the plaintiff. We're going to need to do the exact same thing for the defendant or the defendants. Put their same profile out there and ask questions in the inverse. So, we want to find jurors who are sympathetic to the defendant, but we do it differently. We want to find out, how we can strike them. So it's asking the exact same questions, but the purpose of asking the questions is to disqualify or strike them, not necessarily keep them. We want to be searching for plaintiffs that we are for prospective jurors that we want to keep for our client. We really want to search for the jurors that we really want to strike for the defense. We don't have time to do that, but it's the same process that we would really go through. You'll see that in the slides as well, because I kind of built some prompts for a typical defendant, and it's really just engaging back and forth with the AI to again create that workflow or cheat sheet. One of the cool things though is once you get that done and you have all this information in your chat, you can ask it, well, create a profile of the best juror that the plaintiff could have in this case. Again, you're not looking at this as the one source of truth. You're not looking for this as the cheat code, but it's just more information to review and audit your existing template, what you have already written down and planned out to say, did I adequately address this or have I left out something? Then we can even go further and say, well, given the makeup of the jury of the plaintiff, and again, assuming that we had done the defendant, let's amend, our standard, our template, and copy paste the template in. One important thing is whenever you're copying templates and putting in information, don't ask the AI to audit the entire template. That's too much. Even for one person, like that's way too much that's going on. Narrow your focus. And so for instance, I have a template that I created, and I'm going to copy just the introduction section. That's all I want it to focus on is let's just take the information we have about the plaintiff, about the defendant, what we've already discussed in our chat, and I want you to apply that to this template that I'm pasting in here and let it get to work. So with that, now it's just focusing on the introduction. Again, you're narrowing your focus, which is what you want to do. So this, again, the more help that you have, the better. We're just creating John Smith and Sonia. Then we've got a couple other prompts that I think, again, will help us. One of the big problems that I think a lot of us have when it comes to jury selection is nailing down a juror and getting them to talk when they just don't want to talk. There's always a handful of jurors, especially in the first 12 or 18, that they don't say a lot. Well, that's really a problem because jurors that don't say a lot, you don't know a lot about. So one of the prompts I had come up with was, how can I officially engage a quiet juror? During the open-ended section. Generally, they're not going to react a lot during the close-ended, not provide a lot of information, but hey, ask it, what are 20 questions that I can ask in the open-ended section of a quiet juror to, again, get the information that we've already put in here and filtered and discussed. And why that's working, two of the final prompts, and there's one more, so we got 3 prompts left. But, I like to ask it, given the makeup of the jury, the plaintiff and the defendant, what are the top 5 questions? Sometimes I think that the top 5 questions are a certain thing. Well, again, let's just ask the AI, what are the top 5 questions that you think I should be looking at? Do the exact same thing with the defendant. What are the top 5 questions to determine those who are most sympathetic to the defendant? And again, give you so much more information to then base your decision on whether to update, to amend, to change your current template. And then one of the things that I don't like all of the apps with jury selection. I think they're just too cumbersome. I am a little old school in the fact of I just like to do it on paper, but you have to be really fast. And so, having a jury checklist is super duper helpful. That way you can just mark, yes, no, X's, circles, just really, really fast. Problem is on 8.5 by 11 or even 11 by 17 sheet of paper, you don't have a lot of space. So one thing that I've used AI to help with is using an emoji cheat sheet effectively, or using emojis to depict certain things, putting that into your questions so and can match it up. But that way you can circle an X really, really fast and go through all your jurors, as opposed to having to navigate on an iPad with some of these, softwares that may or may not work. So, what I've asked it to do in another one of the prompts, the final prompt really, is, create a symbol or emoji for, each of these 5 questions. And ultimately, I'm going to ask it to do it for every single question. So that way, again, you can use that to say, hey, this is going to be my cheat sheet now. This is my checklist of what I ask all the jurors. And I mean, that's the end of the this section of the GPT portion, but I'll show you what I've come up with. So going back to the slideshow here, this is my jury checklist. I've been able to have a lot of emojis come in here, and I know what it is. I have codes in all of my questions so that I know that if I'm looking for, just the world, or, this doctor symbol or certain things, I know, okay, this is where I'm going to look on the sheet. So I can just mark an X, I can mark a circle, and then I can follow up based on that. And I build this out for all my jurors. I think it's 12 jurors per page. So, generally, if you're starting with a panel of, in the 30s or 40s, you're going to have a couple of these, but by and large, absent a lot of crazy strikes, you're going to be striking from the first, 30 most of the time. And with that, you've got a lot of this information right here at hand, so you can follow up very quickly and have your notes and put it in place. It's something that's worked really good for me. And I hope it can also work very well for you. Again, this checklist is in the slideshow. So if you want to download that and get that, you can access that. Also, if you want to email me and ask me questions, happy to talk through that as well. But this is just an example of what a checklist can do that you can create, so that way you can record the responses and follow-ups and how you want to leverage that going forward. One cool thing, and I don't know how every judge would feel about it, but having the ability of the AI to transcribe your jury selection process and put that into GPT actively as you're going through a trial. Haven't gotten that far with it yet, but I think that's something that, if we can get a judge on board with, that can really help leverage the computing power to be able to analyze a lot of different jurors and their perspectives in real time. Because again, that's what this is about. So, so much more that we could talk about. We're about 3 minutes over. So I've stayed as close to I could as about 25, 30 minutes. But, that's the end really. I didn't see a lot of questions that came through, but if anyone has any last minute questions, I'll check in the chat right here to see what else we got. But other than that, I think that's the most of what I wanted to say. I hope you found some benefit. Like I said, this is not the end all be all. There's so many more ways that we could have gone with this. These are just the 3 or 4 or 5 ways that I was looking of how we can use AI to at least start the process of modernizing our current jury selection process. So with that, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit here with me today to follow along. If you've got questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me via email. You've got our URLs here. You've got our web pages, and you can follow up with me that way. Schedule a free strategy session if you've got questions, and I look forward to the next one. So thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. Everyone have a great day.